Kia ora koutou, and welcome to Tiny Talks episode 1, where we are speaking with Gemma Douglas around breathing together and how we can use breathwork to support regulation in both adults and tamariki. Her keynote at this year's Tiny Nation Early Learning Hui sparked powerful shifts in how we approach breathwork and regulation, both for ourselves and for the tamariki in our care. So we had to get her back to do this podcast. Today, I'm going to have a chat with Gemma about the power of the breath and how it becomes the bridge, not just to calm, but to deeper connection. Drawing from lived experience and science-backed tools, Gemma will share how breathwork can support nervous system regulation, resilience, and relational wellbeing for both adults and children. So let's kick into it. Hi, Gemma. How are you doing?
Hi, Erin. I'm great. Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Thanks so much for being here. We're pretty excited to roll out our first Tiny Talks with you.
Yes.
And we'll kick straight into the first question, which is really just about the why and why you choose to do the powerful work that you do. So when did you first realize that your breath could do more than just keep you alive?
I wish it was earlier than it was, but it was quite later on in my life. I had always had a weak respiratory system, Erin, since growing up, since a child. So I just kind of accepted that my respiratory system was a weakness of mine. And I was chatting to another motherhood friend who had little babies like I did at the time. It was about 6 years ago now. And she said on the phone, have you tried this particular type of breathing called Wim Hof method breathing? And I hadn't, but it definitely sparked my curiosity. So I jumped on YouTube and did a particular kind of guided session. And it actually blew my mind. I was so sleep deprived and I had sick kids at home. And I was actually, in that kind of struggling stage in motherhood that we've all kind of been in at times. And I had this boost of energy and what I now know was nervous system regulation. And it just made such a huge imprint on my nervous system and on a kind of a core memory moment that really sparked my journey. And I continued from there. I realized that the Wim Hof method breathing that I'd just done, it was actually quite advanced. So I realized I just started this research on breathwork and just couldn't stop, which has led me to where I am today.
Awesome. So if we apply a bit of an education lens over the work that you do in that breathwork space, often as teachers and educators, we talk about how first we do for the child, then we do with the child, and then the child learns how to do for themselves, that whole idea of scaffolded learning. And I'm really keen to apply that frame to what we're talking about today in terms of breathwork and that emotional regulation space, which has become such a buzzword, particularly in early childhood education, because as adults, we know how important it is to create that environment of calm for the children that we're working with. And we know that calm starts with us and how we are regulating ourselves and our breath and our emotions. So I guess my next question kind of focuses on that idea of the adult first and the adult kind of controlling that space and that environment. If you talk about breathwork as being like a remote control for our nervous system,
Yes.
what are a few buttons that we as adults need to learn how to press when we're feeling a little bit overwhelmed?
Yes, and those reactive moments, which we all get, which no matter what age we do, we get them. And yes, I love using the term using your breath as a remote control for your nervous system. I love that analogy. So the first one would be the calm button. And the calm button would be doing a slow exhale, simply because what I want to be able to pass on are really easy, practical tools that we use in the moment. And not only for us to understand, but also for our kids to understand. So the calm button on the remote control would be all about the slow exhale. The next one would be the safety button, and I would relate that to nasal breathing. So when we are nasal breathing, we are slowing down our breathing, our respiratory rate, and we are reminding ourselves back in presence that we are safe in this space. And then I think this is more for adults, but if there was a wisdom button on there to pause before we speak, I'm still working on finding that button myself. Yes. So that's probably those 3 buttons on the remote control I'd find.
Okay, nice. So in those moments of chaos, what do you think is one specific kind of breathwork strategy that we as adults can reach for that really works in real life, in those real life kind of moments?
Yes. So my favorite, the one I give most readily is the physiological sigh. So this is a proven breathwork technique. It was studied at Stanford University. There were a number of breathwork techniques studied, and this particular breathwork came out on top as being the quickest to downregulate nervous systems. And what this is it's actually a really quick breathwork technique. What you do is you take 2 short inhales through the nose, but the first inhale is quite a big one. So you're kind of filling up as much as you can from your belly first into your chest. And once you've felt like you've got a full breath in, then you take another sip in. And then from there, you're doing a long, powerful exhale out like a sigh out your mouth. And that is proven to lower your nervous system down. And the beauty is you don't need to do any more than kind of 2, 3, 4 of these, partly because it's going to change your biochemistry and it's going to get you a bit dizzy if you do too many of them anyway, but it's going to bring your nervous system down the quickest. And what I'll explain further to this is that this is actually based on what children do already when they get upset. So, when children or little babies, they go, when they get upset, that's actually their bypassing their minds, going into their physiology and calming down their nervous system the quickest. So what Stanford University have done is they've packaged this up and said, here it is for adults to be able to use voluntarily, which I think is just awesome. Yeah, so the physiological side would be my...
Nice. That's a really easy, quick implement and something you can do in the moment without having to think too much. So when it comes to that next space of actually doing with our tamariki or our children and actually supporting them to understand the importance of that self-regulation and the tools that they can use to help support their own breathing, what do you think that breathing looks like with children in a home or early learning environment? And could you share a powerful, playful strategy that we could try together with children in those moments?
I think it's about joining their world first and foremost. It's not pulling them into ours. It's sitting down and actually looking at the child. It's matching their rhythm. How are they breathing? Matching their rhythm at first so that there's a bit of, so you're looking at them, you're seeing them, and then slowly guiding it slower. And the way you can do this is simply how they are learning already, which is through play. So feathers, blowing feathers, bubbles, making ocean sounds, making animal noises. My favorite one for children is you put your finger up and you imagine it's a flower, you're smelling the flower, and then you're blowing out the birthday candle for as long as you can. And then, you have a little thing, hey, can you blow that candle out longer than me? Oh, it's joining their world and their play already. And how we can ritualize this is really important. So we know from psychology that to create a habit, it needs to be linked to what's powerful is linking it to an already established habit or ritual that already exists. So before a meal or before the bedtime story or when they get up from the bedtime, and it's practicing these specific or, just playful techniques so that when they need it the most, so they practice it when they're calm, so when they need it the most in chaos, it's right there for them.
You beat me to my next question, which was, how do we actually build these kinds of strategies into our transitions and our day-to-day rituals so that it just becomes a normalized part of what children are doing with us throughout the day, as opposed to one more thing that we're adding in there to tick a box?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It is. And when we remember to, it's creating the neural pathway within ourselves as well, not only the children. And then they're the ones that start to remember the rituals before us, and they start reminding each other. And that's what's so cool in a home learning environment, that you don't have a huge amount of children in front of you. It's a beautiful small group that you can remind each other and learn together, because often being a primary school teacher trained myself, we're learning from the kids sometimes as much as they're learning from us.
And it would lend itself really nicely to move into those pre-sleep times for children after lunch, or, as they're getting ready to wind down anyway, and to use it alongside some playful yoga techniques and different things to also move their body and use their breath at the same time.
Yeah. And I also think it's language as well, using language around the techniques. How does it make them feel? Get them to name it, and then validate that. And that's all just information that is building within them.
So once we've started scaffolding that for our children and practiced the breathing together, how do we help them learn to develop their own go-to breath tools for those big feelings as they come. And I know we've talked about making it a part of everyday transitions in life, but are there some ways that we can foster that more in terms of their growing independence with learning how to bring that calm to themselves and self-regulate?
Yeah, it's when children are, in my experience, when children get really frustrated or really overwhelmed and you tell them to breathe, just breathe, they're not really going to do that off the bat. They're kind of going to go, no, no, I'm not doing that. Just because we don't, and when we find ourselves as adults in those moments, we don't want to be kind of told what to do in those moments either, do we? So the huge thing I've realized is it's the co-regulation and it's the modeling, which is super important. And that's where so much either functional or dysfunctional breathing comes out of families because of how the adults are breathing already, that the children have watched and learned behavior. So modeling it is first and foremost huge. And also, but not only just breathing functionally, but it's when we feel frustrated ourselves, voicing it. I feel frustrated right now. I'm going to do this technique, or I'm going to breathe through my nose. I'm going to push this button on my remote control. And so it's arming them with language and tools and showing them that adults can do it. I can try that too. And then inviting them to breathe with you as well. But also, so that's the first step, I think, the modeling, but then recognize it when they start to do it themselves, even if it's subconscious to them and they're not consciously doing it. Just celebrate it by naming it, saying, oh, I saw you take a deep breath before you tried that. That's amazing. That positive reinforcement around it. And it's just always keeping it in awareness. Awareness is everything in that conscious mind.
And I think that positive reinforcement is really important for a child, because obviously as they're learning those new skills, having someone actually put a name to it, label it, and say, look, I can see you really trying hard to manage those big feelings by thinking about the way you're breathing, or taking yourself away to have some quiet time, or whatever it might be, is really important, particularly given all of those big feelings and how often they can come on throughout the space of a day.
Yes, completely. And they're not always going to, just like we as adults don't, it's not always going to happen every single time they get upset or every time we do. It's building that toolbox for them for life.
So we've talked about a few of the different playful techniques that you can use with children. Can you talk us through what would be your top 2 breath strategies that you think work really well for both adults and children? So if you could give someone a practical how to go away and try this, and if educators or teachers listening were keen to bring something into their daily rituals or transitions, or have a space, I guess, to practice some breath techniques with children, what would your top 2 be?
So firstly, my top one would definitely be the humming bee breath. So humming for adults would just be known as humming breath, but you add in the bee for the kids to make it fun and you relate it to them so much. So humming is so unbelievably powerful for us physiologically as well. It's slowing down our respiratory rate. It's extending the exhale. It's creating nitric oxide, which is a really powerful gas in our nasal cavities that we want in our bodies, which I won't go into, but oxygen delivery and everything. And it's also when we make noise and a low hum, that's also increasing that parasympathetic state in our nervous system as well. So it's a really powerful one to do, but it's also a lot of fun and it feels really good that the kids can instantly feel it within their bodies, and adults as well. And that's often the one that I go to as well sometimes. So the humming bee breath, you'd simply be breathing in and then creating a for as loud as you can. And I mean, it might seem a bit silly as adults doing this, but when you're in the car, no one can hear you. It doesn't matter. But when you're doing it as a class or as a small group, it's so cool. And you've got the sound, which is another distraction for their minds, so they're not kind of getting distracted or drifting off. And depending on how young the children are, they can pretend to be bees, can make it as playful as possible. But that would be my first go-to. And then the next one, this may seem a bit young for adults, but it is actually really powerful, and it's a physical distraction as well. And it's just tracing the 5-finger breath. So you're tracing around your finger, and as you trace up your finger or thumb, you inhale, and as you trace down your thumb, you're exhaling. As you trace up your forefinger, and then exhaling on the way down. And this is a really easy one to do with the kids. This was the one that I probably used the most when my youngest needed something, a pattern disrupt to break out from the overwhelm or the frustration he was feeling. And this was the one that he was able to do as well. And he started kind of doing it himself. At first, he would kind of go really, really fast along his fingers, defeating the purpose, but you would see the learning as he went, and it was quite fascinating. And they're very capable at kind of 2, 3, 4 to be doing, tracing their
Mm,
fingers and
mm.
linking it to their breath.
Totally. And that humming bee, like you say, very playful, and the tracing the fingers, I could see that working really well during times of transition, or, mum or dad dropping off and child becoming a little bit overwhelmed or emotional, or separation anxiety starting to creep in. Just a
Yeah.
nice way to refocus, and give them something tangible to focus on, not just what's happening for them inside, but using that hand as a tool.
Or it might be tracing, the educator's hand while
Mm,
they're there,
mm,
it's building that
mm,
connection
mm.
between tracing mum's hand before or they do it together,
Yeah,
so
before mum goes. Yeah, nice.
building in the connection with the breathing is really powerful.
Yeah. Awesome. So we've got some strategies. Thank you. We'll lock and load those. What is one myth about breath work that you would love to bust for parents or educators listening today?
Is my go-to. Telling someone to take a big breath is kind of the worst advice you can give someone. So, because taking a big breath, you're overworking the system. Often, if someone is already frustrated, their biochemical levels, so their carbon dioxide levels are low. And when we take a big breath, it can just cause more havoc than necessary with a big breath. So the best advice would be take a long breath out, so a long exhale, which is linking to rest and digest, or take a deep breath. So putting your hands on your belly and breathing deep into your belly.
That's a good myth buster, because I think as a parent, I'm very guilty. A lot of the time it's saying, now let's just take a deep breath and calm down.
Yes. Yes, see, deep's okay, but big, no. We don't want big. Yeah.
Deep's okay.
Yes.
So we are almost at the end of the official part of the questions for this podcast, and just some closing reflection questions. If you could give every whānau or family one breath cue to hold on to during stressful moments, all those moments of overwhelm, what would it be?
Can I have two?
Yes, go.
Oh, nasal breathing. When you just switch to nasal breathing first and foremost, because that is going to keep you in awareness and it's going to keep your respiratory rates slow so you can remain in control. And breathe out slower than you breathe in would be the other one.
Easy to remember.
And that's the thing. Breathing is so unbelievably simple yet incredibly powerful. And I think that's the biggest thing adults kind of struggle with breath work, because or disregard it potentially sooner than they should, because it is actually that simple yet that powerful. And that's what I love with kids, working with kids, is they don't question the simplicity of the breath, of the power of simply making sure you're nasal breathing, but nasal breathing in awareness, or making sure you're blowing out or you're exhaling longer than you inhale. That's all that nervous system needs as a remote control to think, oh, yeah, this one wants to be calmer. This one wants to be focused or in control.
And the final question in terms of the interview today, you've worked with so many people across different ages, groups and settings. What gives you hope as a breathwork coach and facilitator when it comes to breathwork guiding that nervous system regulation, and relational healing? What gives you hope in that space?
I think it's just seeing the faces light up in the light bulb moments within the workshops and the events that I do, no matter what age people are. I was with firefighters last week who were 50 to 60-year-olds, and I work with children, primary aged, toddler age, and no matter what, I can see their whole body shift within just, a short amount of time within a workshop. And it's like a light bulb moment comes on for them. It's like, wow, I've got this tool, and you can just see that kind of empowerment that they settle into and realize that I can do this myself. I've got all the tools within me. And seeing how quick nervous systems can shift as well when they have safety, when they have presence, and a little curiosity. It's pretty powerful, and it's the simplicity of it. And so, if you are walking this earth, your breath is within reach. And people are starting to realize that it's not just a function, it's a tool and it's a superpower that we can use no matter what age we are.
Perfect. And a great way to explain it to children as being a superpower too.
Yes, absolutely.
Nice. So now we've got a quick fire round of questions that we're going to ask all of our Tiny Talk guests, completely unrelated to your area of expertise. We've got 5 questions that are all related to early learning or parenting. And just give us your quick gut instinct response to each of the questions.
Okay.
Number 1, what's your favourite children's book that gives you all the feels?
The Invisible String.
I've never read that one.
You haven't. It's about that it's invisible no matter where you are in the world. I used it a lot with my kids if we had to leave, dropping off and picking up or whatever, being separated from them, and that we've always got a string connected to each other and it's invisible, and the stronger the love is, the thicker the string. I actually used it when my grandmother passed away, and one of my children in particular was really upset, and I remember her asking me, "Mum, does the string go to heaven?" I still remember that moment. I was like, "Yes, darling, it does." And so, yeah, The Invisible String. But the other book, I've got one other book. Sorry, I know this is meant to be quick fire round. Is I Love You Forever. I mean, it's a book that I can't really get through without crying. It's so beautiful. Do you know that one? I Love You Forever. Oh,
I
I'm
feel
gonna
like
I'm gonna give it to you. It's about a mother that cradles her son and says, "I love you forever. I like you for always. As long as I'm living, my baby, you'll be." And then he grows older, and then it changes around, and he's cradling his mother.
Aw.
Beautiful thing is my mum has turned that kind of saying into a song and sings it, has sung it all my children's lives to them. So we sing it. So it's kind of a family lullaby, but I still can't read that book because I cry. I'm going to give you that book, Erin. I'll get it for
What
you.
we didn't, and this is all coming up in the quick fire round, but just to make clear, what we didn't also cover off in your intro, because you're a woman of so many different talents, is that Gemma also runs the Motherhood Project, which is a separate project all on its own that has documented her journey as a mother and shared it with thousands and thousands of people across the country. And one of the things as a mum, The Invisible String, the book you just shared, that made me think about this. One of the tools that I've had in my little toolkit as a mum with my daughter Ella, who is 4,
Yeah.
and I've got one right here, right now, is a little heart.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
And Ella's going through this period at the moment, and I think it's quite a normal developmental thing. She's 4 and obviously a little bit older. But I remember it happening with my older boys too when they hit that same age and stage, which is during those drop-off times or those times of transition, really struggling with that separation anxiety rearing up. And just over the last couple of months, it's been, I don't really know why, but it's just been particularly painful for both of us when it comes to drop off. So what Gemma had suggested on the Motherhood Project that she'd done with her own children was drawing a heart on your hand somewhere that you can connect with each other during those drop off times, so that whenever she looks at her heart and whenever I look at my heart, we think of each other. And it connects us during those times of separation. And it's actually been the thing that has worked the most, I've been giving her an item of mine to look after or something that reminds her of me and a family photo and all of those things. But it's the heart on the hand that has been such a big part of helping to make that transition a little bit easier. So the invisible string reminded me of that.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. And yes, we use the heart many, many times over the years as well. And it's getting, my child loved to draw the heart on me, and I would draw the heart on her as well. But that just highlights even more the simplicity of things. They don't need to be complicated. And that's what breathwork is like. It does not need to be complicated. The hardest thing for anyone with breathwork is just actually to remember to do it, to implement it. That's simply it. The techniques themselves are so simple. It's just remembering to do it.
And like you say, the driving in the car is actually a ritual that we all do every day, drop-offs and pickups and things that make it really easy to kind of go, right, when we're in the car, we're going to do this. And that's one thing that I've taken away.
Yes.
To
Brilliant.
put into
We
practice.
spend a lot of time in the car, don't we, as mothers, as parents?
All right, back to the quickfire round, which is proving to not be so quickfire.
Not at all. I'm sorry, that's me.
No, it's all good stuff. What do you think is the most underrated resource to use with children?
I'll relate this to the breath, even though it's not meant to be, but bubbles.
Bubbles.
But I don't think it is an underrated resource,
No, we all
probably.
love bubbles.
Yeah, I think we.
It is a great one to kind of connect back. Yes.
Yes, and also for breath as well, because it's incredible for breath lengthening and regulation without even realizing that you're doing breath work.
There you go.
Yeah, there we go.
Child's in a bit of overwhelm, go to the bubbles.
Go for the bubbles. Yeah, exactly. And don't all kids want to hold the wand themselves, even though if it means pouring it out on the ground.
And pour out the contents of the wand.
Oh, they do it. Yeah.
I did visit one of our educators who had a great trick for this. She brought the long bubble wands from Kmart or the warehouse, wherever you get them from,
Yeah.
and she taped them to the veranda posts outside so that the children could still have control of the wand, but the content remained intact. So there you go.
That's genius. I'm going to remember that.
All right, what's one value that you hope every child learns from the adults around them?
Empathy.
Empathy.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Says it all.
Yeah.
The funniest or most unexpected thing a child has recently taught you?
It would have to be, I don't know if you'd say it was a lesson, but it's a moment that I'll always remember. But I suppose it is a lesson. My son so I'll give you just in the quick fire round, which is not quick fire, I'll give you a very short backstory to this. So they had to practice a lockdown at school, which you have to, I get that. But my son came home and he was a little bit, scared by that. So anyway, he took a while to be getting to sleep a couple of nights in a row. And I said to him something that my mum said to me, and I remembered it because I've been that child at times myself. And she said, "Your bed is the safest place in the world." And without hesitation, he said back to me, "No, mum, your bed is the safest place in the world." And I was like, well, yes, that's absolutely correct. To him, the safest place in the world is with his mum and dad right beside him, and he's in the middle. So that was a moment that stayed with me, that I was wrong and he was right.
Yeah. How good. Okay, last quick fire question. If you could give every parent or caregiver one tool or reminder, what would it be?
Your regulation matters more than your words. So your own nervous system matters a lot more. So find your calm first and then find your words.
Yeah, that's powerful. And I think the finding your calm first is just so key, isn't it? As parents, as educators, as teachers, something I often have to remind myself of in those states of overwhelm. But yeah, your children look to you, don't they?
They do. And I loved when I was with the firefighters last week, I was teaching them about physiological sigh, the power of how quick it is. And in their training, they absolutely loved that. And they said the three things that they say when they're in those, because they're putting themselves in really reactive, big moments all the time purposefully. They say, step out, step up, step in. And I think as adults, that is just such a beautiful concept. When something in front of us is so intense or, causing a big reaction within us, step out. So turning around, step up, do that breathwork technique or that deep breath or that slow exhale or nasal breath, and then step back in to this space.
Great mantra.
Step out, step up, step in. Loved it.
Perfect. And we're going to end on that note because I think that's the beautiful closing. Hey, thank you so much for joining us today, Gemma, and taking us into your world of breathwork. While we know it's simple, it is incredibly powerful. And some of the techniques you've shared today, I'm sure a lot of people will look to use as a model for how we can co-regulate and be with the children that we are caring for in a way that gives them the tools and strategies they need to foster that resilience and the empathy for others and all of those soft regulatory skills that we need as we learn to navigate the world around us. So pretty purposeful work, pretty powerful work you've got there, and we look forward to continuing to follow you as you do more of it.